Today we're finally looking at a platform shooter with the ability to pick up different weapons, be able to drop them again, have different weapon types, and be able to look and move correctly in the right places while managing stuff like ammo count. So stay tuned and let's get started with the video. So for part one of today's video, we're looking at just getting the basic movement working. Now I'm going to actually start with the add-on that we're going to use today. I don't try to use add-ons all the time, but this one is just vital if you're making a shooter. What this does is this adds a new behavior called JJ weapons, and if added to an object such as a gun, it stores stuff like its ammo count, how much it's got left in the clip. It adds a shoot interval, reload time. It just does all the hard work for you, and this is what we're going to be using in today's video, so make sure you download it. Once you've downloaded it, you can come over to your construct file, do menu, view, add-on manager, and then install add-on, and click on that add-on for JJ weapons, and this will be installed. So for part two, we're going to start getting something really basic working. We've got my character here, as you can see on the screen, and I've got a couple of weapons set up. This currently has nothing to it whatsoever, they're just sprites at the moment, and on my event sheet we've just got some very simple code to allow me to move with W, A, S and D, stuff that's quite standard already that I'm sure most of you are aware of. So how do we get this working? Well, we're actually going to ignore the guns for this part, so I'm going to move them to one side. And I mentioned we've got an arm. Now to get this arm, all I've done is I've took this sprite here and I'll put a link to where I got this sprite from, and I'll also put a link to this starting file if you want to use the starting file for yourself. And all I've done is edit the sprite, cut out the arm and refix the pixel art, and then just copy and paste the arm into a separate file. So I want this arm to be attached to my cat. Now the reason I'm keeping it separate is so I can make this arm rotate up and down with my gun, and then I'm going to attach my gun to the end of this. So how do we approach this? So we're going to start by right clicking, and we're going to add a behavior. Behavior that I want is the pin behavior. Now I need to come to my player and I need to add a second image point. So make sure you click on this little icon here, right click and add a new image point, image point 1. I'm going to click where I want my arm to start. So I want my arm to start just about here, and then just click off. I then need to go onto my arm and I need to edit this image, and the origin point is set to the middle. So if I pin it, it's going to pin the middle. I don't want it to pin the middle, I want it to pin the very end. While we're here, we're going to add a second image point, and this is going to be where we're going to hold our gun. And I want to hold my gun at the end of my hand here. Now this is quite hard to see because of the style of hand that I've gone for. It's quite a simple basic one, but essentially we've got where is it attaching to the limbs and where is it attaching the gun to. So we can click off. We can then go to our event sheet and just add a simple system and on start of layout. We're going to add an action, and we're going to take our hand and we're just going to pin to object. So pin to image point. So we want to pin to our player, and the image point is going to be the image point 1 that we set up. And then just hit done. So now when our character moves around, the hand is attached. Really simple. Now you'll notice that I've got the mouse added. This can be really important because we're going to use the mouse in order to look around and move. So let's set this up now. So I'm going to go to my event sheet, do system, every tick, and then I'm going to have this hand move to where the mouse is. So I'm going to take my hand and then set angle towards position, and this is going to be mouse.x and mouse.y. Now when I move my mouse around the screen, my hand moves with it, but we get this sort of weird motion where we start looking backwards, and this is not great. What we want to do is make it so if we reach past a certain point, say here, we flip the character around so it's looking the other direction. This is really simple to set up. So back to our event sheet, we're just going to do a system check, compare two variables. I'm going to check if mouse.x is less than or equal to, and then we're going to do player.x. If this is the case, we want to do two actions. So we're going to start with our player, and we're going to scroll down to this set mirrored, and we're going to mirror our player. We'll also need to do the same for our hand, but we're not going to mirror it, we're actually going to flip it. So we're going to flip the sprite instead. Now we need to do the opposite of this, so we can do the reverse if we face the other way. So just right click, I'm right clicking at the end here, and just add an else. I'm just going to do the opposite, so I'm just going to take these 2 lines of code, copy and paste them, and then just double click and change it to not mirrored and not flipped. Now what happens if we try and look around is our character will flip to which way we're going. So as we're looking around the screen, we decide which way we're going based on where our mouse is, instead of just moving left and right. This means we can also move back and shoot at the same time, which is really, really handy if you've got quite a hectic sort of game. So final thing what I'm going to add for this section here is we're going to add some sort of reticle that we could follow. So I'm just going to insert a new object and create sprite and reticle. And for this, the easiest thing to do is just get a red circle, make sure that we've got border on only, and I'm just going to fill that out, and I'm just going to add some lines like so, create a simple crosshair, but you can create whatever sort of crosshair that you want, like so. It's not quite even in the center, but that's fine for today's video. Again, you can fix this. So if we crop this now, and I've got this here, and I want to resize this to be a bit more reasonable, so say about there. So I've got my reticle down. I need to make sure that it's being used properly. So I'm going to come to this every tick code here, and I'm going to say that reticle, and I want to set its position. Its position is going to be mouse.x and mouse.y. The final thing we want to do is add one more action. Take our mouse, and we want to set cursor style. Now, you might not be aware of this, but this is the basic cursor style, but there's lots of different ones you can do. So you can do the hand tool, text select, crosshair, move, help, wait. These are all different ones that you could add to your game, but actually, if you want something a little bit more special, we create our own sprite style reticle, and we set the mouse to none. So the mouse is not visible in our game. So now if we run this, our mouse will disappear, and we've got a reticle instead that we're able to follow and move around with our character. So part 3 of this video, we're going to be looking at getting a single gun to be able to pick up and drop. So not firing yet, but be able to pick up and drop a weapon. So I'm going to pick my handgun for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of handguns in. I'm going to explain the reason for this in just a bit. And the first thing I want to do is actually edit its animation. So we're going to click edit, and we're going to change its image points. Now, we've got the origin here and it's set to this sort of center position. We actually want to have the origin where we're going to hold the gun. So I'm going to hold the gun about here. So I'm going to place that there, and that's where my character is going to then hold it. So you'll see it shifts the position slightly, but that's fine because we can pick them up and readjust them. I then need to add a behavior to this. Now we're going to come back and add some more behaviors to this, such as our JJ weapons, but for now I just want the pin behavior. So I'm going to go to my event sheet, and I'm going to add a new global variable. This is going to be called weapon in hand. This is just going to be a simple check to see, have we got a weapon currently in our hand? And it's going to be set to false by default because we're going to start with no weapons in our hands. We have to find them, we have to pick them up. So we're going to do a check if weapons in hand. We're then going to do a keyboard check to see if a button's been pressed. So we're going to say on key pressed, and this is where you pick your pick up and drop key. I'm going to set mine to Q. We're also going to add a second condition to this, and this is going to be our boolean that we've just created. Weapon in hand. I'm going to check if we haven't got a weapon in our hand. So have we pressed Q and we haven't got anything in our hand? If so, what do we want to do? Well, we're going to click on the side here, right click, and add a blank sub event. Now we're going to check what sort of weapon is around the area where the player is so we can see what we can pick up. So we're just going to check if our player is overlapping another object, and that object is going to be our handgun. Again, we're just getting one weapon to work at the moment. Now you notice that I've placed 2 handguns down. Now what's going to happen is if you're overlapping both of them at the same time, you'll pick up both at the same time. This makes absolutely no sense for our game. So go to event sheets, and we're going to add another condition to this onto our handgun, and we've got this one called pick nearest furthest. This means it will only pick one of them, and we want to pick the nearest one to the player's X position and the player's Y position. So again, it only picks up one handgun, and that's why I've put down 2 so we can test that. So if we press Q, we've got no weapons in our hand, we're going to pick up the handgun. What's going to happen? Well, first thing we want to do is we want to take our handgun and we want to set angle, and this is going to be our hand.angle. This means it is matching the angle our hand's facing as we pick it up. Once we've done that, we can then pin it. So handgun, and then pin to object, or pin to image point, sorry. And we're going to take our hand, and we want to take that image point of 1 that we set up, making sure that angle is ticked on. So now if we overlap a gun and we press Q, we can now pick up that gun. Now, final thing that we need to do is first of all, we're going to add a small weight. And without this weight, I find that some stuff just bugged out slightly, which is why that's there. Because if not, if we try to drop the gun and we don't have this weight on, it tries to pick up and drop the gun at the same time. So this weight is needed, and it is really important. And then we can add a new system action, and then we can set Boolean weapon in hand true. This means this code will no longer activate, and what we're going to do is have the opposite of this, so we can drop weapons as well. So if we test this now, we should be able to walk over, pick up a gun, and we've got a gun in our hand. Now you see we get some other weird stuff with our gun being upside down when we look the opposite way. So let's look at fixing that now. So to fix this, we just come to this line of code here where we check if we need to flip our player on our hand. You'll think it'd be quite as simple as just adding a handgun one to say that this is also flipped, but it's not that simple, unfortunately. What we need to do is add a blank sub-event, and we need to check 2 things. First of all, we need to check if the handgun is pinned, because if the handgun is not pinned to our hand, it means it's on the floor, and we don't want it to flip and move about. If not, that will look really strange. Once we've got that, then we can look at flipping the image. So we set flipped to true. And then we need to repeat this a second time for our else statement if we're facing the opposite direction. So we just right click, add blank sub event, and we do the same thing again, handgun, and then is pinned, and then we set our handgun and we set flipped, and then hit not flipped. So now we've got that set up. When we move around now, we should have it so our gun will flip with us, but only if we're holding it. So the other gun does not get flipped. Good. So how do we drop this gun now? So this bit's nice and simple. We're just going to add an event, do a keyboard check, and we do on key pressed. Key we're looking for is our same as our pickup key, so Q. And again, you could have this as a separate key if you want. And we want to just add another condition, and this is going to check if we've got a weapon in our hand, because if we have got a weapon in our hand, we don't want to pick up another gun, we want to drop the current one first. Let's look at our action for this. Well, this is really simple. We're just going to take our handgun and we're just going to unpin, like so. And it's simple as that. And if we test it now, you can see that we can walk over, pick up our gun, and then if we press Q again, we drop it. We can't pick it back up, however, because we've not reset our variable. So this weapon in hand true. So all we need to do is take these 2 lines of code, copy and paste them, and put them down below, and flip this from true to false. So that's set up, but we're going to add one more thing to make this a little bit more exciting. So I'm going to take my handgun, I'm going to edit its behaviors, and I'm going to add the physics behavior. And what we're going to do is we're just going to do a bit of a check to see, have we picked it up? If so, we're going to take our handgun, we're going to scroll down, and we're going to disable the physics behavior. So set enabled, set it disabled, and then hit done. We're just going to move this up to the moment we pin it. Now, if we've unpinned it, we want to take our handgun again, scroll down, and we're just going to re-enable it. This means the moment that you drop the handgun, it's going to have physics, which means it's going to full. Now, one thing that we have to fix with this, if we are having this physics behavior in place, is just make sure that your ground also has the physics behavior and that your ground has the physics behavior set to immovable. If you don't have that, the gun will just fall through the floor and will never be seen again. So make sure your ground has also got the physics behavior and set to immovable. And this just makes a really, really big difference, because now not only can we walk over and pick up guns, if we drop them, they fall, they bounce around, and they feel like they belong to the world. And now we can test if we can pick up more than one, and we can't. We can only pick up one, even though we're overlapping both. Now this next part, we're going to actually look at firing our first gun. And now I'm going to focus just on the handgun for now. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to add a new behavior to my gun. And this is going to be JJ Weapons. So this makes a huge difference and solves a lot of issues for us. So what can we do with this first of all? Well, if we click on our gun now, you'll see there's these new options. So we've got a clip size, so how many bullets are in a clip, how many bullets are currently in the clip, how many bullets in the stock, what's the maximum number of bullets we can have in our stock, how long does it take to shoot between bullets, how long does it take to reload, do we auto reload if we run out of ammo, can we just hold down the trigger, or do we need to click each single time that we want to fire, is it enabled, and then there's a shoot and reload key. I've never been able to get these to work, unfortunately, so we're just going to set them off. And then finally is the weapon image point. This is where the bullet's going to come out of. I'm going to set this to 1, and then we're just going to go to our gun really quickly, edit its behaviors. I'm going to add a new image point. I'm going to set where we want the bullet to come out of. So I want my bullet to start here. So you've got your origin point of where you hold it and your image point of where you fire from. So now we've got that set up, we need a bullet. So let's add a new object, scroll down to a sprite, and we're just going to create a bullet that we're able to fire. Now the way that I normally do bullets, and I'm not an artist by any means, but I get a sort of bullet color. I grab the circle tool, like so, and I make a rough bullet shape. I then fill that in and crop. So there's my bullet there, and you can soon add some little accent lines. So I could come in with black line like so, make it look a little bit more like a bullet, but you can spend more time on that. Main thing is once our bullet's in, we need to resize it. So the way that we can resize it nice and simple is zoom right down, hold shift to make sure we're keeping the aspect ratio, and our bullet needs to make sense for the gun that we're firing from. So I'm going to put it right next to my gun and get it to the rough size that makes sense. And I think about there makes sense. I'm then going to take my bullets, and this might be a bit hard to grab now, and I'm going to move it off screen. Like so. And this just means that the initial bullet, the one that we're going to use as our reference point for all other bullets that spawn, doesn't interact with our world at all. So what can I do with this bullet? So I'm going to right click on it, edit its behaviors, and give it the bullet behavior. Once it's got the bullet behavior added, because we've got a bullet on the screen, we get this list of settings here, and this means we can control how fast the bullet is. Does it get faster? Does it have gravity? This means it falls. So my nuke at the start I showed off, that was an example of using gravity. Does it bounce off solids? Does it set angle? This one must be on, and then we're not worrying about step. So we've got our bullet in. Now we need to actually get all of this to come together. So we're going to go to our event sheet. I'm going to start with this on start of layout. We're going to add a new action. I'm going to use handgun. And now this has got the JJ weapons. We've got a load of new options here. And you can see that some of these are actually really useful stuff, such as being able to cancel reload weapons. So you can get really creative with this sort of stuff. But the main thing we want to do is set bullet instance. This says what bullets do we actually want to use. And I want to use our standard bullets. But you can see how you can use this to actually change bullets on the fly. So if you're making maybe an archer game and you've got lots of different arrows you want to use, this is actually really useful because it allows you to change the bullets straight away with just one line of code. So I'm saying that my handgun at the start of layout will use bullets. Once I've got that, I need to be able to fire now. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to go to my mouse. I'm going to check if mouse button's down. Now we could check if clicked, but this means you'd have to click every single time. I'm going to check if the button's down. I'm going to go for left click. If the button's down, we actually want to add a blank sub event first. Now if we don't do this, and we just say, right, our gun's going to start firing, it's going to fire all guns on the screen. we don't want it to fire all of them. We just want to fire the one that's in our hand. So handgun and is pinned. If it is pinned, we can take our handgun and we can use the JJ weapons options. We're just going to use make a shot. So we're going to make a shot now, and this will take one from our ammo, it'll fire a bullet, it'll set the angle for us. It's doing quite a lot of stuff. Now you also notice there's an option for reload. Let's set that up really quickly now. So to add and reload, we're going to do keyboard, on key pressed, and I'm going to use the R key for this and hit done. I'm then going to add a blank sub event once more because I only want to reload the gun that's actually in my hand. So I'm going to take handgun, I'm going to check if it's pinned, and then I'm going to take handgun, scroll down to JJ weapons options and reload weapon. So that's all done. We can now reload our weapon as well. Final thing I want to add to this is I'm just going to do a check. So I'm going to say bullet on collision with another object, and this is going to be my ground, and this is going to destroy my bullet as well. This means we can't fire through the ground. So bullet.destroy. So just a nice quality of life change there. So if we test this now, so if I click, nothing's happening. If I go over to my weapon and click, I can now shoot. It's shooting out of the right place, and I can shoot forever because I've not set up any ammo or anything like that. So I can drop it, shoot again, nothing's happening, and pick it up and shoot again. So we're starting to get really, really close to our finished code now. So next part, we want to actually look at dealing with ammo properly. So first thing I'm going to do is take my handgun. I'm going to change some of the options. So clip size, I'm going to say 6 bullets to a clip, so like a revolver sort of thing. Bullets in clip, let's say that we've got 6. Bullets in stock, let's say that we've got 30 bullets total and we can hold 60 bullets. So we've got some options now. I'm also going to up the shoot info slightly to match that sort of style of gun. So now I want to be able to store these values. So I'm going to insert a new object, scroll down, and I'm going to find the text box. And this is going to be called ammo count. I want to have permanently on the screen how much ammo I've got. So I'm going to put this in the top corner where the camera stops just here. And I'm going to up the size to about 40. Make that nice and big, and we can change the fonts and we can do lots of different stuff. All I'm going to do is just center it like so. I'm going to start the text off to be blank, like so. So it's there, but it's blank. Now I want this to be constantly on the screen even if I move around. So what we're going to do is add a brand new layer. So insert layer above, and I'm going to call this GUI, or in fact I'm going to call it HUD. And the most important thing with this layer is that we change what's called the parallax. Now, without going too complex what the parallax is, it's the scale rate. And if we set to 0, 0, it means that this layer is bound to the camera and will not move, which means as we move around the level, our GUI will stay in the same place. So I'm going to take this text and just change its layer to be the HUD layer. I'm also then going to lock this HUD layer and go back to layer 0 because I don't want to accidentally add stuff to my HUDs. So we've got our HUD set up. We can go to our event sheet and we're going to create 2 new global variables. So we're going to add another variable, and the first one is going to be called ammo, and it's got start at 0, and the next one is going to be called stock, and it's going to be set to 0. On our line 5, which has got every tick, we're going to add a new action. We're going to take our ammo count and we're going to set its text. And this is going to be our ammo variable. We're then going to use an and sign, and then going to use 2 speech marks with a line between. Now this just means that I want this to just appear as it is. So I've got a break between the 2, and sign again, and then stock, like so. And then I'm going to click on the side here, right click, and add a sub event. I'm going to take my handgun and I'm going to check if it's pinned. If it is pinned, what we're going to do is we're going to take our system variable, set value, and we're going to take our ammo, and this is going to be equal to the name of the weapon, so handgun, dot, then JJ weapons being the behavior, dot, and then bullets in clip. We're then going to do this a second time, so system, set value, and we're going to change the stock, and this again is going to be the name of the gun, so handgun dot JJ weapons dot, and then bullets in stock. you might be wondering what happens if we haven't got a weapon. Well, we're just going to right click again and add an else. We're going to take these two lines of code and just copy them. We're just going to set them to 0. So it means that we show 0 ammo if we're not currently holding a weapon. So this is just a nice quick fix to this, just in case we're not holding one. And finally, we're just going to add a little quality of life change. So I'm just going to add a brand new event. I'm going to go to my handgun, and I'm just going to scroll down to is reloading. Now remember, the only weapon that can reload is the one in our hand, so don't need to do any checks to see if it's pinned or not. And we're just going to take our ammo count and scroll down, set text, and we're just going to say reloading. So if we are reloading, our ammo count will disappear and we'll just get a big message saying reloading. So if we do a test, we start with 0, 0 on our ammo counts, then goes up to 630. You can see I can't spam click as much anymore. If I press R to reload, we get a big reloading message and our new ammo is present. So now not only are we able to shoot and our bullets will be destroyed when they hit the floor, but now we've got auto reload set up, we've got clip sizes set up, and if I was to carry on with this and run out of ammo, I would no longer be able to shoot as well. So the final part of today's video is going to be split into two. This first part is going to be for premium users, and I'll put a timestamp in if you want to skip if you're using a free version. Now the good news is if you're using premium, it's really easy to add additional guns. So let's take our Uzi over here. And the first thing I need to do is just edit its image points. So I need to make sure that I've got where I'm going to hold it, add a second image point, and put one over here. What I'm then going to do is go to families, and I'm going to add a new family, and this is going to hold all our weapons in. Now to start with, only add your Uzi and don't add your handgun. And I'll explain a little bit why we're doing this in just a sec. And we're going to call this guns. I'm then going to add some family behaviors, and we want to add all the behaviors that we've already got on our handgun. Now if you add a sprite that's already got behaviors to your family, that family can no longer have those behaviors, which is why we haven't added our handgun yet. So our handgun's got the JJ weapons, it has got the pin behavior, and it's got the physics behavior. So we need to add all three of them to our family. We can then go to our event sheet, scroll to the top, and I can click on the first line of code, shift click on the bottom line of code, and I'm going to replace object. And it's going to give me a list of objects to be replaced. I want to replace my handgun with my guns family. Now this means our Uzi now works, but our first gun does not. And all we need to do now is take our handgun, we're going to edit its behaviors and delete all three behaviors. And then we're going to take our guns family and we're going to add our handgun. Now the only drawback of doing it this way is it just means that you do need to set up your gun again. So this means if we come to our handgun, you'll see that everything that we set up with how much ammo size it's got has just been reset. So we just need to quickly reset that. So I think I had 30 and 60, image point is set to 1, burst key options, interval times. But again, this is something that you can play around with. Everything is handled by our event sheet now, so we can quickly switch between these weapons. So let's take our Uzi and let's give it some really ridiculous properties to make it stand out. So let's say it's got a clip size of 1,000, it's got 400 bullets in the clip, for instance, and its shot interval is set to 10. So now if we run this, they still function as normal. I can pick these up, I can shoot them still, and my Uzi has now got much faster firing. And in our event sheet, we can also come across and you'll see we've got stuff like gun, set the bullets, so all guns have the same bullet. We can actually manually go in after, take our Uzi and set the bullets of that separately. Any more guns we add, we just edit the family, add them to here, and all the code and logic set up for us. Nice and simple. If you want to skip to the end for the outro, I've got an announcement of where we take this code next. Now, if you're using the free version, you don't have access to what we call families, and this does make life much easier, but there is a way around. It's just a bit of a pain to implement. So let's start with our Uzi over here. I'm going to edit, and first of all, just change the image point. So I've got where I'm holding it, add a second image point where I'm firing from. I then need to add all the behaviors that I added to my first gun. So I'm going to go through and I've got the pin behavior, the JJ weapons, and the physics behavior. I can then edit the properties for the weapon. So image point 1 is really important, so it fires out the right place. I might want to say that it's got 400 ammo in its clip. I might want to say we've got 300 currently out of that 400. Bullets in stock might be 1,000. So I can play around with all these properties, and I'm going to put the shot interval down to 10, just so it's got really fast firing rate. So that's all set up, but how do we set this up in our code? Well, what we need to do is we need to go through each time we see the mention of handgun. I'm going to add an additional line of code. So you see handgun, set bullet instance. We're going to right click and we can replace object. And this is a really useful one that we're going to use. So we're going to replace any mention of handgun in this line of code with Uzi. We've then got this line of code here, checks if handgun is pinned, then we set the ammo. All we're going to do is copy and paste that. And make sure you click on the whole line by clicking on the end here, not just here. This will just save you a bit of time. Replace object and Uzi, and this will change these settings as well here. The thing that I noticed when editing this video is that we've just got one small fix that we have to do with adding multiple weapons in, and it comes with this ammo stock. So currently if the Uzi is pinned, you'll set the ammo to how much ammo is in the Uzi. Else it's going to set the ammo to 0. What we want to do is check each one individually, and the easy fix for this is just copy and paste this else statement and add it to the Uzi, making sure the else is on top. Now what we'll do is it will check if the handgun's pinned, else it will check if the Uzi's pinned, else it will check if no weapons are pinned. So this means that you still get the ammo 0 stock, but it doesn't happen all the time. So if you picked up the handgun previously without this else statement, it would say 0, 0 because it's running this else statement. So just a quick fix there to add. We've then got this one here to check if the handgun is pinned. Again, copy and paste. We're then going to replace object and make that an Uzi instead. We're going to come and do the same here, so copy and paste. And you'll see that this is going to lead in quite a lot of lines of code, unfortunately. And this is just one of the drawbacks with not being able to use families. Now, this one's where it gets a little bit more tricky. So we're checking if we've not got a weapon in our hand, have we got one that we can pick up? So we are going to start by copy and pasting this line of code, and we are going to then replace object with an Uzi, just like we've done before. But what we also need to do is add an else to this as well. So I'm going to take this else line of code and add it to the start like this. What this will stop happening is it means that we can't pick up a handgun and an Uzi at the same time. So this line of code will only work if this line of code hasn't. So this is just a thing that we just need to be careful of so we don't pick up multiple guns at the same time. We've then got this one is weapon in hand, and you'll see that we unpin the handgun and set the physics enabled. We'll copy these two lines of code and replace the objects with an Uzi. And then finally we've got if left button down and handgun's pinned, copy and paste, replace object with an Uzi. And we've got this final one here, so we can copy and paste and replace it with an Uzi. So it's a bit of a pain to do, but once you get in the habit of this, it's quite quick to do. And you can see even after all of that, we're still only at 26 events. So you can still add a fairly decent game with your last 14 events by putting in some enemies, and you've got 2 different weapons that we can use. So if we test this, you can see that we can pick up, we can fire, we can drop, we can now pick up our Uzi that's got fast firing rate. You'll see it's got the extended ammo count there, and we can switch between these weapons really, really quickly. So there's lots of next steps you can take now you finish this video. What I recommend is the free videos on screen, which will allow you to deal with enemies who can actually shoot back at you to create a proper platform shooter, but also deal with your health and theirs. So it's not just a case of one bullet will kill them, it might take multiple bullets to kill them, and it'll take multiple bullets to kill you. And when you do die, we can set up stuff like resetting the level from the beginning or from a checkpoint. So that is it for today's video. Now you'll notice in the intro, and I'll probably play that again right now, I also had a shotgun and a rocket launcher. I'm afraid I'm going to tease you a little bit and keep that for a couple more days, and that will be a tutorial that will be coming out probably around about Saturday. So if you're enjoying this content, please make sure you stick around for that. And I'm also working on a tutorial on how to implement this into a 3D environment so we can also shoot up and down and have a real first-person shooter. So subscribe for more Counter-Strike videos, drop a comment, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.